Welcome to Eastern Planning Committee of BCP Council for the 19th of December 2024. First item is housekeeping, please. Jill.
Thank you. Please note this meeting is being recorded by the Council for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded, streamed for live or subsequent the ultimate discretion in this. For those in the room, please note if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept on mobile phone switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. Those in the room, this includes
go straight into right. So just for introduction, so I'm Councillor Paul Hilliard, the chair of committee, and I'll ask the other members to introduce themselves.
Councillor Michael Tarling for Christchurch Town.
Cameron Adams, Councillor for Kinson.
Gillian Martin, Councillor for Boscombe West.
Councillor Joe Clements, Penhill Ward.
Lawrence Williams, Councillor Down and High.
Joe Salmon, Councillor for Moordown.
Matt Gillett, Councillor for Talbot Woods.
David Flagg, Grange Ward.
And we're also joined by Steve Davis, the presenting planning officer, Robert Firth, legal, and Todd Hubbard, lead officer, and Jill Hollyoake, Democratic Services. Just entered the room. Felicity Rice, councillor. Thank you. Okay, item 3, declarations of interest. Any declarations from members? I will just declare from the chair, Councillor Tarling.
Yeah, it's probably similar to your declaration. In a previous role as a committee member and chair of planning of Christchurch Town Council, I have given decisions on this item. It's the second one on the agenda, but as this is a new application and different to the previous ones, I don't think I'm predetermined, so I will stay in for this. I just wish to declare that I have been involved in applications before.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tarling. And my declaration is, again, on item 6B, I will be stepping out of the meeting for that item from previous statements I made on previous applications. Thank you. Just a technical update on presentation. So if we just pause one moment.
okay.
So the meeting's adjourned while we just do a technical update. Resume the meeting on item 4, confirmation of minutes of a meeting of the 21st of November 2024. Any comments, or are we happy to approve those? Happy to approve, thank you. Item 5 is public issues. After the officer presentations, we will hear any public speakers, followed by any ward councillors who wish to speak. So item 6A, is Bistro on the Beach, and that is to be presented by Mr. Davies. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm up and ready. Thank you. Yes, Chair. This is an application for the Bistro on the Beach site. It's now known as Sobo Beach. I can just put up the site plan. As members can see, it's on the Southbourne part of the beach. There's an existing car park off of the Southbourne Beach Road, the Southbourne Coast Road. And it's accessed by the zigzag you can see in the bottom corner there. It's retrospective. The use is already been in operation for some time now. It was originally installed there for a very temporary period. Obviously, it's been there for a longer period, which is why they've applied for retrospective consent. The application's been in for some time now because we've been liaising with the applicant because there've been some concern from neighbours about the way that it's operated. As you can see, that's the location there. That's the aerial view. You can see the car park above, the zigzag access to it, and actually the Google Earth image actually shows it installed, so it has been there for quite some time. You can see it's on quite a busy part of the beach from the number of the people that are there. This is an image of what it's like at the moment. It's a sort of collection of pop-up units, principally a restaurant and bar. You can see it operates from an old bus that's located there. There's some old shipping containers which have been used for serving food and drinks. As you go further right, you can see there's another shipping unit there, and on top there's an open terrace. It's quite a sort of eclectic mix of buildings. Again, you can see there's the floor plan. On the left-hand side, it says number 1 there. There's a stage which they operate a disco from. Number 2 is an open terrace area. Number 3 is the bus, and the bus has got a canopy over it or in front of it, so you can provide some covered dining space. And again, there's some more eateries and bar serveries to the right. As you go further over to the right, there's some public toilets, and the public toilets were put in by the council, and they've provided a new access to them. This is, of course, a replacement of the original Bistro on the Beach building, which was demolished some time ago, and say this is a temporary pop-up use. It operates all year round, and in the winter they provide some tarpaulings, some coverings over the external areas, because of course in the winter it rains, and they want to keep the operation going, the facility going. So there is a change in the way that it looks in the winter. As you can see from that image there, there's the sort of a canopy that's wrapped over several of the areas. The proposal also includes a small decked area which is on the beach, on the sand as well. This is probably a good image to look at, because that shows what it's like in the summer and in the winter with the canopies over it. This is a photograph as you walk down the cliff slope from the car park. You're looking down on top of it, and you can see on the left hand side there's the public toilets, and to the right the terraced area, and you can see the top of the bus as well in the distance.
This is a view from the prom. Again, this is a view of the decking area they've got there. Members be aware that we've approved quite a few of these small decked areas along the beach already, and this is a similar type of proposal. This is a view that I've taken from the beach itself, and as you can see, it's quite an eclectic mix of buildings. And again, there's another view. So, Chair, the proposal before you is retrospective, and they're seeking consent to continue the use that they've got there at the moment. It is only for a temporary period. There is a consent for a larger building on the site. Perhaps if I can just show members. It's another photograph. This is an image of the approval for the site. That was approved a couple of years ago. It includes a replacement of the bar and restaurant area on the ground floor. It also includes some beach hut units above. You can see it's quite a substantial building. Whether the council are going to implement that, don't know at the moment, but certainly the consent that's there is extant. Just go back to one of the images of that you can see from the beach. Just as an update, Chair, as members will be aware, there's been quite a significant number of objections. Since the report has been published, we've received some other objection letters and also some letters in support. But I think that they're very, in terms of the content of the objections, they're very similar to what the concerns are, and I'll come on to that later. So as I say, the application's retrospective. They're applying for what you can see in front of you. There's no other change. But the main issue, I think that you can't see from that image, is that the proposal also includes the fact that they run some events during the summer. They run some disco events. The disco events spill out onto the beach. They're quite popular, and you can see from the representations we've had that there's quite a significant number of people that attend those events. Just another update to members. Members will be aware that there's a new NPPF, the National Planning Policy Framework, that's been issued in the last couple of days, the last week or so. The report before you probably got references to the old NPPF, but we've had a look through, and there's nothing significant that would affect our recommendation in terms of what the new NPPF sets out. If I can run through the issues now for you, Chair, as we see them, perhaps dealing with the straightforward ones first, or the relatively straightforward ones. Obviously, in terms of impact on biodiversity, we've consulted with our biodiversity officer, and he's happy that it's not subject to biodiversity net gain. There were some issues about impact on nature. He's satisfied that there won't be a significant impact on the nature conservation issues, and you can see that we've recommended a couple of conditions. One, to ensure that they don't put lighting on the cliff that you can see behind you, because that would disturb the wildlife, and also that they don't have floodlights or lighting that would disturb bats that forage along there. So in terms of biodiversity and impact on nature, we're satisfied that the proposal is acceptable. Flood risk is also an issue because it's so close to the beach. The main complex actually falls in flood zone 3, so there's no requirement for them to carry out a flood risk assessment. Although having said that, it is obviously close to the sea and close to the beach. The decking area that you can see in front of you, that does fall partly within the flood zone, so they've dealt with a flood risk assessment to deal with that aspect. What they've done is importantly, they set out an emergency evacuation plan and a process so that if there is a storm brewing, or there's something that happens, they've got emergency evacuation procedures in place. So in terms of that issue, we're satisfied. The other issues, Chair, are visual impact. As you can see from that image in front of you, it's an eclectic mix of temporary buildings. It's got tarpaulins over it. As you can see from my report, you know, I consider it, although not a thing of beauty necessarily, often on beaches and on seafront areas, you get structures like this, temporary structures like this that pop up. One of the things that did concern us a little bit was the fact that as it's been there for a year or so now, it's starting to look a bit tired. So you can see from the conditions that we've set out that we're putting a condition on that before next summer they do a refresh. They repaint it, and we'll expect them to submit a scheme to us to show how that'll be repainted. Also, in terms of that, those timber retaining structures that you see in front of you, we think they're a bit harsh. The mural that you can see is quite brightly covered. That's something that they've got a separate application for under the advertisement regulations. We are likely be recommending approval for that. That application doesn't need to come to the planning committee for determination, but we're suggesting that in terms of that timber structure that you can see, that they put some colour washing on there, and again in terms of a scheme that we've got to agree. You know, my view is that for a temporary period, in terms of its visual impact, I'm satisfied that it's something that's appropriate to this location, subject to it being refreshed. Another issue, Chair, is the principle as to whether or not we should allow a fairly significant commercial operation in this location on the beach. I think that in terms of our policy, CS7, all major sort of cultural uses should be put towards the town centre. But having said that, this is an existing established restaurant site. It's been there for many years. The council have recently approved a replacement of that building. So in terms of the planning situation, there's a commitment to have a fairly sizable commercial use in this location. So in terms of the principle of the use, we're satisfied that it complies with your policy. The big issue that has caused a lot of concern is noise. As I said earlier in the presentation, the restaurant itself it doesn't generate a lot of noise. What does generate the noise is that the applicant holds events here. He has once a week in the summer and fairly regularly during the winter, he'll have a disco event on the beach. It's very popular, but it's also, or it has been, quite noisy. The environmental health officer has been monitoring this for some time, and the environmental health officer is on the call, so members can ask questions about the impact of noise. But basically, as originally set out, it was causing a serious nuisance because of the disco, because of the boom of the woofers, subwoofers, and the general noise associated with it. The applicant has now submitted a noise management plan. They've changed the way that they set up their speakers. They're providing much more of the stage. The disco stage area is within a stage area, and in terms of general noise, it is much quieter than it was previously. Obviously, the local residents that you can see at the top of the cliff there in that photograph, you can see there's a couple of blocks of flats and to the right as well. They can hear the noise. We have asked the applicant to carry out a noise assessment, a noise survey, just to help us understand the impact of noise. That's been quite tricky because of the difficulty of getting an accurate assessment given the conditions of noise from wind, from the waves, from children and adults generally making lots of noise on the beach as they do. The environmental health officer, if members want, can ask her for more specific information about the way that the noise was carried out. But following on negotiations, the environmental health officer has been down there several times whilst the events have been taking place. She's been monitoring it throughout the summer, and as part of our recommendation, members can see that the applicant has now provided a noise management plan which sets out various criteria in the report to try and control the noise. Now, the big question here is should you expect this venue or these premises to have no noise associated with it at all? There is an issue of statutory nuisance, and if the noise becomes out of hand, then clearly that's something that the environmental health team can investigate and close down. But there's also an issue of amenity, and the test for amenity is higher. So therefore, you can have something that's below the level of a statutory nuisance, but it could still cause an impact and harm to residents and residential amenity. And the question is the use that they're operating here, is it so serious that it should be refused planning consent? Well, we feel, Chair, that there needs to be a balance here. This is a busy part of the beach. You expect noise, people to enjoy themselves on the beach. Historically, there's been a commercial venue here, and we feel that with the noise management plan in place, the balance is acceptable. So, Chair, the other issue that's been raised is transport and traffic. When some of these events take place, there's quite a few visitors to the site. The transport officer's initial concern or initial assessment of it was that the use didn't raise any significant transport issues. It's not a major development in terms of its floor area. In fact, the floor area of the restaurant is similar to the floor area that they're proposing now. The big question is the events that they hold, and they do when they hold them generate a bit more traffic than you'd get to a normal restaurant. However, Chair, this is an open beach, and in terms of floor space, we feel that in terms of traffic and transport, the proposal is acceptable. Members have got a view on that. There's potential conditions we could add relating to requiring them to produce a travel plan, which would advise local people that are coming to the event. We require the applicant to, as part of their promotion for the event, advise people to travel and arrive sustainably, and remind them that the use is, there are potential traffic parking difficulties in the area. But overall, Chair, we consider the proposal acceptable in traffic terms. The other issue, Chair, in terms of this location is that the Council's seafront strategy suggests that all of the busy, noisy uses should be encouraged to be between the piers in the busy hotspots. However, this site is on the site of an existing and approved commercial unit, and we feel although it's a busy use on a potentially quiet part of the beach, there are still other quiet parts of the beach as you go east and west. So having a hotspot here close to this car park is something that's acceptable. So, Chair, you know, obviously the issues are fairly and finely balanced here, but we feel with the noise management plan in place, it's something we can support. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. Okay, so now we'll go over to public speakers. Jill.
So the first speakers are the objectors, and firstly Michael Simmons, followed by Judith Long.
So I don't know how you're allocating your time, but you've got 5 minutes between you. So after, just introduce yourself. Okay, just press the red. Thanks.
Okay, hello. I'm Michael Simmons, Senior Acoustic Consultant at Clarksons Acoustics. I'm a member of the Institute of Acoustics and I hold a master's degree in acoustical engineering. I'm instructed by Planning Base Limited and the local residents. Planning Base have provided all councillors with a copy of my report by email, together with the transport statement and a policy statement. It's the opinion of Planning Base that this application should be refused on the basis of policies CS7, CS18, CS38 and the seafront policies. I'm speaking today as noise is a key issue in the determination of this planning application. Residents wanted me to be here to give balance to the officer's report and the submitted noise assessment. I've reviewed the noise impact assessment and noise management plan submitted as part of the planning application and concluded there are significant shortfalls which would result in a likelihood of adverse impact. The noise impact assessment indicates that music should be barely audible at the receptors. However, the criteria given does not follow the methodology within the relevant guidance referred to within the noise impact assessment, that being the Code of Practice on Environmental Noise Control at Concerts. As a result, music will be clearly audible at the receptors. It's corroborated with the residents' direct observations as submitted to the local authority. Correctly following the guidance would result in a much lower limiting noise level at the venue itself. However, the noise impact assessment indicates at page 9 that this lower level is, and I quote, considered too low level for a commercially viable dance floor. As a result of this inappropriate noise threshold, the suggested venue noise limits and resultant mitigation are unlikely to avoid adverse impact. Now quoting from section 4 of the noise management plan, which describes the proposed sound system setup. I quote, "This is not a noise limiter and does not limit the noise at source to a measurable level. This type of system would not work in this environment," end of quote. Without an active noise limiter system, there's no reliable methods to control music noise. The noise management plan states corrective action would be taken if noise levels are considered too loud. This is subjective, so it's not precise nor enforceable, so cannot form a proper planning condition. Noise management plan also does not refer to low frequency noise at all, despite the noise impact assessment stating that specific control of low frequencies should be provided. Low frequency noise is a key component of the complaints. The lack of low frequency noise control measures would significantly inhibit the overall efficacy of the noise management plan. The information included within the planning application is not sufficient to demonstrate that adverse noise impacts can be avoided, nor does it allow appropriate planning conditions to be written. Thank you.
Morning. So if you just press the button on the front speak, the red light comes on, that's it.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm here today to let you know how the noise from this open music event is affecting me. I live in a flat on the cliff above Sober venue. I experience a repetitive thumping sound inside my flat during these events. I feel this in my body and at times feel nauseous. It's a boom, 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 right through the gut. My husband is actually not quite well, so we cannot escape from our flat, have to endure the constant thumping during the many events held. This nuisance has been going on for well over a year. In May alone, we had it for 6 times. This used to be a very peaceful area. I ask you to please put a stop to the nuisance on behalf of myself and many other residents. Finally, to say, in George Orwell's 1984, I'm sure you've all read it, noise was used as a form of torture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Long.
And speaking on behalf of the applicant, we have Claire Spiller, followed by Rich.
I'm sorry, the wrong language.
That's fine. If you take a seat now, that's
Okay, thank you.
appreciated.
So Claire Spiller, followed by Rich Slater.
Chairman and committee members, thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the application. And you will also hear from the applicants. This application has been considered acceptable by your officers and is recommended for the grant of a temporary planning approval to the end of October 26. Since the respective application was validated in September 23, the applicant has worked with your environmental health officer to provide a number of on-site mitigation measures. And these include alterations to the speakers and installing acoustic barriers. Also, in discussion with the Environmental Health Officer, the applicant has limited the number and duration of music events. The applicant has also submitted a noise management plan in support of the application, and the measures within the plan have all been implemented. You will also have read that the Environmental Health Officer states that they have received noise complaints even when there are no events being held on site. The Environmental Health Officer confirms that no noise complaints were received from recent events carried out between September and the time of their comment in December 24. This is since all of the above measures have been implemented. Your Environmental Health Officer concludes that the proposed live music amplified music events at the premises does not adversely affect the neighbouring residents and recommends approval subject to conditions. As related in the officer's report, this proposal, given the site history, including the extant permission and having regard to your seafront strategy, which identifies the site as a visitor hub, positively contributes to the tourism offer. From the number of emails and letters voicing support that you have received, this venue is clearly regarded as a highly valued community function for the local residents of Southbourne, which should be commended. It complies with policy CS29 and the aims of policy CS6. I will now hand you over to the applicant.
Hi there, my name's Rich Slater and I'm here to speak to you today as somebody that's been at the heart of Sobo Beach since day one. BCP Council advertised a tender seeking bids to create a modern pop-up dining experience to animate the beach and create a place to meet, work, eat, drink, have fun, be inspired and ultimately enjoy the view. We won that tender and we have fulfilled those requirements. I agree with the planning officer today that we should be granted approval to carry on providing a service for a temporary period whilst a permanent solution for such an important site is found. I won't dwell on the technical aspects, they've already been outlined by the planning officer and we have successfully proven to have mitigated any noise issues with the approval of the environmental health officer. There are no technical grounds on which to deny this application. We do suffer from unique acoustics where neighbours in the same building are affected or not affected differently. But we have gone great lengths to work with residents where they engage with us and with the EHO, and we have now resolved the complicated issue of noise. The sound consultant today raised some important general points, but unfortunately he does not have all the information required to make a specific statement on this case. He did not engage with us. Otherwise, we could have happily walked him through our system and the investments we've made with acoustic engineers to design a system that has solved the issue of bass, as well as physical barriers put in to prevent noise egress. Put simply, if they'd engaged with us, they could have proven that the issue has been resolved. No report has been submitted that we've been able to see in advance and argue against. At a time when high streets are struggling, Southbourne is a thriving area with high occupancy and a buzz of activity led by small businesses. This has fostered a local community that rallies together. This level of connection between businesses and consumers is the true economic strength of the area. This community has taken Sobo Beach to its heart, and they are the rhythm that beats all year round to make Sobo Beach not just a summer tourist attraction, but a year-round reason for everybody to visit the seafront. This community has been vocal in its support for this application. This summer, the Times was invited down to review Bournemouth, and the reporter saw Sobo Beach as a breath of fresh air, a venue that makes the most of its surroundings, attracts locals, not just tourists, and fosters a real sense of beach community. And we were a big reason why the Southbourne Beach was awarded the best beach in the South. We have become an ambassador for the area, with comments of support coming from far and wide. Our reputation is a part of what makes Southbourne an attractive place to visit. This directly supports the local economy and creates year-round employment. In conclusion, we have created a modern, high-quality pop-up dining experience that has animated the beach and created a place to meet, work, eat, drink, have fun, be inspired, and ultimately enjoy the view. We have done what was asked for, and we hope today that you will agree with the recommendations of your council officers and approve this case with the agreed conditions in place, knowing that you have done the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you for presentations. We now first hear from Councillor Nanovo.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm Councillor Bernadette Nanovo, and I am a councillor for East Southbourne and Tuckton Ward, where this site is based. As local councillors, we are fully aware of the pros and cons of the Sobo Beach Cafe, and for over a year now, we have had local residents telling us how they feel. We have also received many emails of support from residents and visitors to Southbourne over the last week, and some emails from locals who still object to this development. I have great sympathy with the residents who live near the cafe and the beach hut users who found the music unbearable when the cafe first started holding music events. They had been used to a much slower pace of life in Southbourne until 2020, when more people started to flock to Southbourne. Because this increase in visitors came about so quickly, the demand for parking and more toilets took BCP by surprise, I think, and we have had many complaints during the summer and on bank holiday weekends about antisocial parking. Residents are rightly annoyed by being blocked in or not being able to move around safely due to cars being parked everywhere. To address the noise issue, we had meetings with the residents concerned and Rich Slater, who runs the cafe. And since those meetings in early 2024, Mr. Slater has continually monitored the noise levels and visited residents in their homes. He has also been working with BCP Environmental Services, as you've heard, and changes have been made that have reduced the level of noise being emitted. It is impossible to rule out noise completely in this area, as there is a car park just above the cafe, where cars park up and play their music loudly through open windows and doors. This noise carries all around the cliff top. As already been mentioned, there is planning permission in place for a cafe on this site, a much larger development. Therefore, the issue around parking needs to be resolved. And we are working with the traffic safety team on a review of parking around Southbourne Crossroads due to the loss of one of the car parks that is now being built on. We cannot get our car park back, but we can review the parking restrictions and see if any more legal parking can be created. We appreciate that visitors are frustrated when they arrive after a long drive with family in the car and cannot find a legal parking space. Users of the cafe have been quick to point out that this cafe does not only organise events that involve music. There are yoga events, arts and crafts, painting and beach cleaning events. And Rich Slater has managed to bring the community together in a way that is not easy to do. It may be that in the future we can get a permanent enclosed building. But for now, this cafe is serving the needs of local residents and visitors alike, all year round, not just in the high season. So I am hopeful that the Planning Committee will see the need for its continued existence until a more permanent solution can be funded. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Novo. And now, Councillor Richardson, please. Just your microphone.
Good morning. Okay. Firstly, I would like to thank Sobo Beach Management for their ongoing communication with us during the development of this venue, and also for their operational revisions intended to assist residents and beach hut occupants in the enjoyment of their properties. However, this has not been entirely successful. There are still concerns relating to disturbance experienced by what is seen to be an excessive number of events involving loud music and unacceptable human behaviour on promenade and beach areas. For example, rubbish and alcohol excess. In addition, a lack of sufficient toilet facilities is encouraging urination behind beach huts. There are also security issues when the venue is closed. Excuse me. When recently attending an evening beach event, I witnessed a group of people who, having accessed with ease the rooftop seating area, proceeded to have their own party, albeit reasonably well behaved. Therefore, adversely affected parties would ask that any future development seriously takes into account the need for a secure, permanent structure to replace the existing arrangement. This would allow for a venue which provides fun, entertainment, and hygienic facilities, whilst allowing a more peaceful environment for those who wish it, or in the case of the local natural environment, need it. In short, coexistence for the benefit of all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. So I think from discussions, if I can bring in Catherine Fowler, please, just to give a committee a bit more technical update on what measures you've brought in this year, the acoustic report, which was carried out in July 2024, and also answer the technical challenges we've heard from the objector about being precise and enforceable and the low frequency and also receptors. Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Catherine Fowler. I'm Environmental Health Officer for BCP Council. I've been working with SABO for over a year now in ways to mitigate the noise. So in 2022, this business started operating with live amplified music events. I think back in 2022, we received a couple of complaints, but there was no further action taken at the time. 2023, we received further complaints, but at the time, the complainant didn't want the noise monitoring equipment, which is what we would expect to put in to measure and assess the noise impact. He didn't want anyone in his property. It was just more a case of it was causing him concern and what could be done. So at this point, I started engaging with Rich Slater at SABO, and we had our first meeting. From that, at that point, the noise from the music, it was audible. You could hear the lyrics of the song on Southbourne Overcliff, which is the nearest residential property. And these points were raised to the operators. From Christmas, we received our biggest amount of complaints. We had 11 complainants, and it was at this point that I needed to intervene. So we continued to monitor between December and it must have been April. And when the planning was submitted, the planning application was submitted, I had asked for a noise impact assessment, but obviously at this time I wasn't sure what was happening with the impact with the planning application. So the complaints continued. I continued to monitor. I had the noise monitoring equipment installed in the residential properties on 2 occasions. Ordinarily, with any noise nuisance investigation, we would look to install the noise monitoring equipment up to 2 times, and we would look to carry out observation visits on site up to 3 times. With this whole process, I've visited in 2024 over 8 times, and also seafronts have monitored as well. So I've gone well above what our noise nuisance procedure would expect. And the reason for that is because in obviously the amount of complaints that we're getting, and also the planning permission not being decided. So in June, I decided to intervene, and that's where my holding objection came in. There was clearly an issue because there were so many complainants. I hadn't substantiated a nuisance, but I felt that I had a duty and a responsibility to protect those residents with regards to amenity. So that is where the holding objection came in. And I asked that planning requested a noise impact assessment up front as soon as possible. That noise impact assessment was then completed in July, which needed to be done before the summer months. I then had another meeting with Rich and planning enforcement and seafronts. I think that was it. Can't think who else. And we sat down and discussed the issues and where we were going to go. And the only thing that I could come up with at the time, because I wasn't sure what was happening with the planning permission, was that the number of events were restricted. It was agreed that it would go from the proposed 66 events for the summer, that they would reduce that down to 30. And I saw that as a reasonable step moving forward to reduce the impact. Obviously, you have to bear in mind it wasn't a statutory nuisance. This was just that we were looking to protect them from an amenity perspective. So that is why we look to reduce them. And also we have a role under the Licensing Act to ensure that licensed premises, which this is, are fulfilling their duties to prevent public nuisance. So following June, our meeting, at this point they had implemented various measures, including the sound system. They had CPS, their sound engineers on site. They installed a compressor system. I will do my best to explain this. I'm not an acoustic consultant and I'm not a sound engineer, but as I understand, this system that is in place restricts the audio signal to the DJ mixing area. So the DJs could turn their volumes up to max, but it will not go any further than the volume that's been preset. That preset threshold has been set between the the sound engineers and the nearest resident who previously was a complainant but has worked. I understand she's worked with SABO throughout this last couple of years. So that is how that preset level was set. There's two phases on it. The initial one is to reduce the dynamic range. So that reduces the thumping sound that you get with the low frequency noise from music. And then the second part of it limits the audio signal at a preset threshold. I think where the comment about the noise limiter comes in, and it not being a noise limiter, that is effectively, it's not a noise limiter that you would typically expect in, say, a function room in a hotel, where you can have a measurable level and a microphone that's measuring that noise level, and it will cut off when it reaches that point. That wouldn't be suitable for this type of environment because it's open air and there's so many other dominant noise sources. You also have to consider with this area, the noise environment is really complex. You've got the sea, which can be very noisy. The waves crashing on the beach, depending on whether it's rough sea, obviously calm sea doesn't, but depending on how rough the sea is, it can have an impact on inside the residential property, and it increases that noise level quite significantly. Also the wind direction, if it's southwesterly, north westerly, easterly, whichever direction has a massive impact as well. You've also got the road traffic noise. Summer months are really busy. That's generic with all of our coastline in this area. It's not, I can't say whether it's specific to Sobo being there or not, but I'd imagine having facilities is going to attract more families to that area, knowing that they can feed their children, there's toilets, etc. So that is also considered in the noise environment for the area. The road traffic, you've got people on the beach. In the complainant's property, which is where I've obviously assessed the noise from, children on the beach is probably one of the loudest things that you can hear. And then obviously the waves and the road traffic of passing cars going along Southbourne Overcliff, which is pretty much constant in the summer months. And then also St. Catherine's Road and the other roads in that area. And then you've got the other existing noise sources from birdsong and whatever else is happening, pedestrians walking past. So there is quite a lot of dominant noise sources in that area. When it comes to the assessment, I won't go through every point of Clark Saunders' acoustic statement that they've given. I only received it yesterday. So I haven't had much time to read it. But what I will say is that I've assessed the noise impact on these residents throughout the whole of this year. It's not amounted to a statutory nuisance. The low frequency noise of the music, you can hear it at times, and unfortunately, because these music events are played in an open air environment, there is no way that you will completely mitigate that noise unless you enclose it with a building. So from time to time, you can periodically pick up a bass beat, but it's not at a level that I deem would cause an adverse impact, because it's masked when a car goes past, when children are on the beach, and other dominant noise sources. So I've taken all of the information that's been given to me, and with regards to the noise impact assessment that was submitted in July, I appreciate that this is flawed. There are inconsistencies with it, and I completely agree with Clark Saunders on some of the comments they've made. But had this been a new development and this noise impact assessment was submitted to me, I would have asked for more information before making a final response, providing a final consultee response. But because this development is in its third year of operating with these music events, the first year was probably set up, people didn't really complain about it. Second year was potentially, quite significantly an issue for people. Third year, we've managed to mitigate that massively by implementing various measures and reducing the frequency of those events. It's also not something that's happening 24/7. It's not every day it's happening. It's not like a bar that's popped up next to a residential property and we have to consider that bar's operating from 8 a.m. till midnight every day. Whilst I appreciate those might be the hours for Sobo in terms of the music noise, this is only happening for 30 events from April to September, and then I think they proposed 15 through from October until March. But those events through the winter are obviously dependent on the weather. If it's bad weather, they're not going to run those events because it's not viable for them. And also, if the weather is bad, that if you get a northeasterly wind blowing offshore, the noise is non-existent. So I appreciate. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Thanks,
there were quite a few questions.
Mrs. Fowler. Yeah, that's useful. So it might be that members will come in with questions. So appreciate that update. So open to members' questions then, please. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I'm sort of hearing that it's the main. I think the noise problem is mainly because it's sort of. The main problem with the noise is because it's eclectic buildings that are sort of flimsy, and that this problem will be mainly solved when the permanent structure is built, you know, there's already planning permission for. Do we know when that's going to be built at all?
No, unfortunately, the application is there. It's obviously going to be depending on BCP finances.
I know we're going to mainly be talking about noise, but one thing that stood out from the police architectural liaison officer was that they've said in their report it would be sensible to have an integrated CCTV system, alarm systems installed, some hardening measures, and I can't pick up if that is required as a condition or if those measures are already in place. It would just be good to know.
Thank you. Mr. Davies?
Chair, yes. Because of the location and because of the number of people that are on the beach generally, the council have got CCTV along the seafront anyway. But if members felt that that was a critical issue, I'm sure that the applicant would be happy to provide a system. Although the applicant's put his hand up over, I don't know whether members want to.
I think this is an important issue. So if the applicant come to the mic, please.
Appreciate the opportunity there. Just for confirmation, we do have a restriction on our licence. Obviously today we're talking about planning. We do also have a licence for the premises as well. There is a restriction on the licence that requires us to have CCTV. We've had that in place since we opened. The highways officer, I think their statement was very early on there in proceedings. The number of antisocial incidents in the area has actually improved whilst we've been there, because we've been there as a presence with CCTV. We now have evening patrols. I can't remember who it was that stated that they'd been down in the evening and seen a group had accessed our premises. We now have evening patrols going down when we're closed as well. We do close at 9:30 in the evening, so we're not open late. So there are hours where people are about after us. So yeah, we are happy to take any restrictions on that side, but we already have those restrictions and we have complied with them fully since the start.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Slater. I think that answers Councillor Salmon.
Just to follow up then, it sounds like there is CCTV in place already, but is that something we can include as a condition? That the CCTV needs to stay in place, we know that we need the hardening to stay in place and so forth. I know that when it's come to waste management, we can't be so prescriptive. I'm just curious if we can be as prescriptive here.
Mr. Davies?
Chair, yes. Chair, yes, we can add a condition that requires them to maintain a security system on site in accordance with the scheme that we've got to agree and to maintain that thereafter.
Okay, thanks for confirming. Any other quick Councillor Clements?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would just, my question is about operating hours. So if the operating hours are from 8 AM until 10 PM, 7 days a week, does that also apply to the special outside events? Do they also end at 10 PM in the evening?
Mr. Davies?
Chair, yes, the condition we've added, we think it would be unreasonable for them, for a general restaurant to not be open until 11. That's the normal closing time. So the restriction we've put on is that they've got to close the restaurant bar at 11 o'clock. We've also put a condition on that there's no music beyond 10 o'clock in the evening, although you've heard from the applicant that they close at 9:30 in the evening. So that's the situation.
Yes.
So is that just the regular operating hours for the restaurant and the bar, or does that also apply to the special events? Because the special events are going to be 30 during the high season. So what time do they end? That's what I want to know. When they're having disco events, do they go on? They will end at 10 o'clock as well.
The noise management plan says that it should be closed at 10 o'clock, and I think that's what their licence allows. But if you heard from the applicant, he actually closes at 9:30.
Regularly, on a regular basis. I just want to know specifically about the disco events. That's all.
Disco events, we've put a condition on that says there shouldn't be any noise associated. Well, any noise. So if they had a disco event there and it was a silent disco, they'd have to close at 11. But we want to stop the noise, the music at 10 o'clock at night.
Across the board, yeah.
Across the board,
Thank
yes.
you.
Councillor Gillette.
One of the things that would impact the amount of noise would be obviously the direction and the strength of the wind. Just to make your job a little bit more difficult here, would it be possible to write some sort of condition which restricted the amount of noise based on the actual weather conditions on the day? Because obviously.
No. I think that's, if you've heard from the environmental health officer, that's been one of the difficulties in coming up with a precise assessment on noise, because of all the variations of wind conditions and sea conditions and so on. But you know, as you've heard from the environmental health officer, she's been down there on numerous occasions. And although you can look at noise surveys, she's done an actual monitoring, very important monitoring over the summer period. And as she said, you can hear music some of the time, but that's you can hear lots of noise and music and events on the beach, and we consider that is reasonable.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you. In my ward, we have a similar issue with Kings Park, who have temporary events all over the place during the summer months, and the noise can be really appalling sometimes. As a mitigation, our residents are provided with a leaflet which contains a phone number they can ring if they feel that the noise is reached above the level that's allowed. Is this something that we'd be prepared to put on as a condition here?
Mr. Davies, would that be something we could include in the noise management plan?
Yeah, it's already included in the noise management plan. If you look at subparagraph B, it says maintenance of a complaints form of any complaints received directly to the business. So I think that they would respond to that.
Okay, carry on.
Yeah, I more specifically would like the information provided to all the local residents that are affected, if that's possible.
Would that be something, Mr. Davies, just like an information cascade to the local, probably at the SOBO's expense? If you put your microphone.
Let me look through the noise management plan. It's the noise management plan says that there is dialogue with residents in the area, and that's already been established. So it's something that they do. If you want us to harden that up with some form of requirement that there's an out of office phone number or a direct phone number that residents can contact the manager if there are issues that have arisen, that's something that would be fairly standard. We can modify the condition relating to the noise management plan to include that extra criteria.
Okay, and Mrs. Fowler, did you want to add it, or is that what Mr. Davies said?
Yeah, there's something we would consider, and it's already been discussed with the operators. It's always, with any kind of events, we say to organisers, provide a contact number so that residents can contact them if there are any issues. I believe Rich has already done that. He's already engaged with most of those residents. It's just whether they want to engage with him. So most of them have his number already. But yeah, it's something that can be included in the noise management plan. He also, following meetings that we've had, will put up all of the events on the website. And I've said to him about putting signs outside the premises as well, just notifying members of the public when those events are taking place, their duration, and if there's any issues, who to call. So it should already be as a control measure that he's carrying out.
Thank you for confirming that. Councillor Tarling.
Thank you. Getting off noise for a bit, one that we've had with a lot of beachfront applications. I noticed there's an agreement for a waste management plan. Just inquiring whether that waste management plan looks at the elimination or reduction of single-use plastics that used at the facility.
Davies, I think the applicant has said yes, but you're aware of anything else?
I think this was raised at the last meeting in relation to other premises as to whether or not we can encourage them to be sustainable and use, recycling and so on. Certainly, we can make sure that the waste management plan that we need to agree has a recycling, and that's something we can liaise with them on. But I don't think it's a significant an issue that we could require them to do that under planning. That's not. Although the waste management plan is mainly to make sure that they clear all the waste away. There's no rubbish lying on the beach. They empty the bins regularly. They empty the bins at a time when it's convenient to beach users, and also importantly that there's a litter management within there. So there's a requirement that they go around and make sure they pick up any litter. So I'd be reluctant to add that criteria in, but see what members say.
That's Tom.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that no waste management plan, like no noise management plan, is fail safe, and McDonald's have a very thorough waste management plan. Yeah, I still see wrappers blowing down the street. So it's one of those things that by eliminating single-use plastics, especially close to the marine environment, we know we're not going to be blowing plastic cup lids into the sea. And as we all know, there's actually alternatives. Appreciate that's not in our planning guidance at the moment, but maybe something that we need to look at as a council going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Adams.
So given all the mitigations that they've already done to reduce the noise, is there still a restriction on the number of events they can have during the summer or not?
Yes, the noise management plan restricts them to 15 events in the summer and plus one a month. So 15 plus June, July, 25 or something like that.
Sorry, so 25 a year was that? Sorry.
That's in the summer.
Yeah, Ms. Fowler.
Yeah, I thought I'd just make it clear. So, as they've been restricted in their noise management plan to 30 from the 1st of April till the 30th of September, and then they're proposing 15 between October and March, so 45 in total for the year. Can I also just clarify another point that was raised earlier about operating hours? So they are restricted under their premises licence until 10 p.m, so they can't have alcohol sales beyond that time. But with regards to music, most of these events are held anywhere between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m, so they very rarely go beyond 6 p.m. There have been occasions where they have held events that have gone on until 9 p.m, but never beyond that. Thank you.
And Mr. Fowler, while you're on there, so if obviously you will carry on, if a complainant comes to the council, you will carry on doing inspections and monitoring as you have done?
Yeah, so we've got a duty under the Environmental Protection Act to investigate whether or not a noise nuisance amounts to a statutory nuisance. It's slightly different than amenity. It is a different test. It has to be having an unreasonable and intrusive impact on the use and enjoyment of that property. So whilst the low frequency noise may be audible at some times periodically, it is not at a level that would be intrusive enough to have an impact on the use and enjoyment of that property. But yes, we can continue to investigate.
And what type of measures could you impose? Obviously, you've imposed a lot now. What other is in
so if it stays at the level it is now, it's not a nuisance. Obviously, sorry. if it for any reason they weren't adhering to their noise management plan and they decided to have more events, or they were having events every night, or the music was just completely uncontrolled, which it was in 2022, and it went back to that, for instance, then yes, we could intervene and we could take action under that legislation. So that would be by the service of a noise abatement notice, and would require them to abate the nuisance. They, as license holders, also have an obligation and responsibility under the Licensing Act, which we are also consultees on for any applications. And if a public nuisance is caused, so there's a licensing objective, prevention of public nuisance. And if we had concerns that the noise was causing a public nuisance, we could look to apply to the licensing subcommittee for that license to be reviewed.
Thank you. And obviously we've heard that the premises obviously is where the music, where they've got the toilets, they've got the staff, but obviously again, Mr. Davies said it's a public beach, and people are hearing the noise from there. So, but as an event, how do you control the numbers of people and the facilities of people, or is it because it's an open space that is impossible to do?
I believe some of the events previously were ticketed, so they were controlling the capacity that way. But yeah, anyone could sit on the beach and listen to the music effectively.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any last questions? No, so we shall go into debate then, please. Anyone want to start off? Councillor Adams.
I mean, I'm obviously I've listened. I accept there's concerns about the noise and everything, but I'm struggling to see sort of what more the applicant can do. There's been 8 noise monitoring assessments that have also there's not a statutory nuisance, and then a noise impact assessment that said there wasn't a statutory nuisance. Then they were told to cut it down by 5 decibels anyway, and then they brought in 10 mitigation measures that I imagine would make things like removing subwoofers quite a substantial difference. And also on the leafleting point, I mean, they've got 2 active and engaged ward councillors. It sounds like I don't know whether it's right to outsource the responsibility on them to go do their little paper round when we've got active engaged ward councillors who can. Some would argue it's part of their job to show how to raise issues with the council. And finally, like on the events thing, I had a look through some of the sort of events they do. It's not drum and bass every Wednesday evening sort of thing. It's I know, I'm very sorry to let you down. They seem to do more events for kids than Pudsey the Bear. Like it's quite a range of events. Some of them start at 10 o'clock till 2, and they're sort of jiggle and rhyme things. Even the Hush Club we heard about, that doesn't go late. So I mean, it seems like they've tried every opportunity to do the right thing, and I do like these beach pop-ups as a matter of sort of personal preference anyway. So I'm very supportive at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Again, from my point of view, I think we've seen what the agreed application is from 2022, which obviously a lot larger scale building. I think for me, the fact that there's a condition to say that the board will be refreshed, and again the conditions on noise. Again, I think that allays a lot of fear for me, and it's good to hear from Environmental Health that they will still be monitoring if a complaint gets raised. Thank you, Councillor Tarling.
Yeah, no, thank you. I agree with what Councillor Adams says about the mitigation that's been applied, and especially things on, I have worked as a sound engineer in the past, and I'm well aware of the technical things that they put in there, and it's about as much as you can do. Yes. Yes. Well, that was. I'll tell you later. So I'm happy to propose that we accept that we grant this application with the conditions as laid out in the officer's report. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that. Councillor Adams.
I will second that.
Okay.
Sorry, the 2 other condition possibilities mentioned during discussions, one relating to CCTV, one relating to context for operators. I'm concluding from what you said that those aren't part of your recommendation.
That's correct. It wasn't actually part of the discussions. It's thrown in during the question session. So if those councillors wish to raise those again as additional supplementations regarding the CCTV, the police will always ask for more barbed wire cameras and everything, and the applicant has answered that there is some CCTV. Regarding hardening of the site, it's in their interest and their insurers that they do as much as is reasonably practicable to prevent loss and damage to their estate. So I don't see there's an issue for that one, but I'm willing to hear. I mean, I've proposed, got second. It's up to the councillors to decide, or the chair to decide if he wants to hear further.
Okay, Councillor Salmon.
So I wanted to make some points just before we move on to the vote about the noise, because it probably won't make me very popular with some people, and I'm not looking to play down the work anybody else has done. But we had somebody mention 1984, and there's a bit I love in 1984 where it's the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. And I do think, actually, I've been past where the Sobo Beach when they've been having their events, and I've heard how loud it is. And as somebody who used to work nights, I can tell you, actually, noise is a physical thing, and what you don't think of as particularly loud, when you are somebody who is trying to relax, who expects that tranquility, actually that being broken can be broken very easily. I don't think we should kid ourselves that even though all of these accommodations have been made to reduce noise, if we approve this application, this will have a detrimental effect on some of the people who live nearby, who will find that noise unbearable, no matter what steps we take. And I don't think we can sweep those concerns under the carpet by looking at all the accommodations that have been made. I'm not saying it is the right thing to reject, but I think we have to acknowledge that approving this application is going to cause a lot of upset and genuine distress to some of the people who live nearby. That said, I also think on balance, we need businesses like this operating in the area. I would support Councillor Tarling's proposal that we approve, although I would like if I read in a document that the police say that they want something as part of the condition, I think given the problems we have with antisocial behaviour, especially with antisocial behaviour on the beach, we should be including those as a condition for any application that we're looking to approve. So I would only support if we tag that condition on. Yeah, that's my 2 pence. Those are my thoughts anyway.
Thank you. Councillor Williams.
Yes, I'd like, if we may, to condition that the local area, not a big area, but the local area are leafleted with contact details. It doesn't have to be done regularly, just once. Thank you.
Councillor Tarling, what are your feelings? We've obviously heard from a discussion that the applicant does advise.
Thank you. Obviously, Councillor Salmon, I don't think actually did put down there as an amendment to that. Councillor Williams has indicated that he'd wish an amendment for leafleting, bearing in mind that there's been quite a lot of consultation with BCP officers, with local residents, and also I think we've heard from the applicant there has been engagement and they have welcomed it. I don't see the value of leafleting, so I'm not proposing that we added a condition for that. Apologies. I take your point, Councillor Williams, but I think they've already done quite a bit, and I
don't think I could vote for it without that.
Okay, thank you.
So, Chair, just to cover a few points then. Sorry, before I go on to the point of procedure, just to clarify one other point for Councillor Tarling. I note in the addendum there's actually a change to the condition, so I'm assuming he's prepared to take that on board. That's just extra plans, I believe, or clarification on plans. Just to clarify that point.
Yeah, I did read the amendment, and yeah, I assumed that was.
Yeah. And so, Chair, as far as the procedure is concerned, then, well, there's only one motion on the table so far. If another councillor wanted to move an alternative and second it, then that's a matter for members to consider, or indeed they wanted to modify what was being put forward. But at present there is no formal motion other than the ones before members, and they'll have to decide on that.
Thank you for clarifying. Councillor Salmon.
So I would like to formally propose my amendment to your motion to include the condition that the advice proposed by the police architectural liaison officer is included. And then I think it will probably help us in our deliberations to know what the ward councillors are doing about this. Is this something where, because I agree with Cameron, that I would expect this type of thing to be going out in a ward newsletter, it's going through the doors of everybody in the ward. I don't know if that's something that is happening or not. Be nice to know.
Okay, are people happy for Councillor Richardson to advise if you do a newsletter? If you can come to the microphone, please.
No, we're not doing leafleting is what you're talking about, Joe, yeah? No, we're not doing that at the moment, but it's certainly something we can do if we communicate a lot with residents by email, so we do a lot of that.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. And just to confirm, so with Mr. Davies.
Chair, if I may, I'd be satisfied if the local councillors communicated that way.
So, Mr. Davies, so the amendment to include security, how would that be included as a condition or a separate condition, do you see?
Jay, as you've heard from the applicant, he's already got a CCTV system there. It's something that's required by the licence, I think, so he'd have to do it anyway. The only purpose of a planning condition is to make sure that that is maintained thereafter.
So just 2 comments on that. First of all, if that became a motion and members wanted to pick that up, then I'd suggest power be delegated to the head of planning operations to come up with a precise wording to cover it. But if members want to have a look at the committee report itself, I'm sorry, I've just lost it. But if members' attention drawn to that, they will see there's at least one other condition in there that covers how to a wording for a scheme to be submitted and approved. So I'm just trying to find it as I speak. And it's, for example, if they have a look at condition, bear with me, could well be. If they have a look at condition 5, for example, that's the waste management plan for submission. You'll see there's a cascade approach for dealing with a scheme to be submitted, how it'd be dealt with, and that scheme would set out how the CCTV was being put in and have to be approved, etc. And that's the sort of thing you're talking about. But I think final wording to the head of planning operations to deal with it, Chair, would be sensible, but that's the sort of thing I think you'd have to deal with.
Mr. Hubbard.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify this additional condition? Is it just relating to CCTV or additional security measures as set out in the representation from the police architectural liaison officer?
Oh, yeah. So I would want it to cover all of the recommendations set out by the police architectural liaison.
Councillor Darling.
Yeah, I've dealt with a lot of docos, and I've had from one of them said, you know, on social housing schemes where they say, you know, being filmed whilst being mugged doesn't ease anybody's pain of being mugged. So CCTV has its limitations. However, as laid out by the officer, to delegate the power that the CCTV system is installed, as it already is, and maintained, I'm happy to take that as an amendment to the application. Police architectural liaison officer, sorry, is used to be known as DOCOs. Yeah, the stuff about flat roofs and stuff like that, the police will always say, you know, unless you got like 3 strands of razor wire and 3 metre high, you know, mesh fences, they'll never be happy, I'm afraid. So, but I don't want to live in that police state, Councillor Salmon. So, a camera to protect the assets and criminal damage, I think is fine. And we've got cameras, as mentioned already. That all the seafront is covered by cameras anyway. So I think, you know, Bournemouth Beach is one of the most cameraed beaches available. And as we know, it doesn't stop crime happening, as we found out recently in the news. So, but I'm happy to take that as an amendment, and I believe Councillor Adams happy to second that we take it.
Councillor Adams, you're happy to include that extra condition. Okay, so if that's Councillor Rice.
I just clarify that, so you're happy to take the recommendation about the CCTV, but not the recommendation from Councillor Salmon about the rest of the room.
Yeah, I don't think that's we could planning condition to ask a councillor to enact something. Otherwise, if Councillor Richardson and Novo
No, I mean
don't
the
do
bit about the
thing,
flat roofs from the police.
Oh, sorry, I thought you were talking
That's
about the
what
leaflet.
Councillor Salmon was also.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's practicable to change the roofs, and that's would fundamentally affect the nature of the application.
Well, that's it. So I can't remember where the section was. So it was all the findings from the police. That's what Councillor Salmon was requesting, that in conjunction with the officer. So you're not willing to accept all of those recommendations?
No, Chair. I've said that as recommended by the officer, that a CCTV system is installed and maintained, which is really just doubling up what it sounds like their licence condition is, but it sort of belt and braces on the CCTV, but not the other aspects. And I did see that Councillor Salmon nodded when I said that, but he's more than happy to confirm that in words.
Councillor Salmon, are you sticking to your amendment motion?
Yeah, so just to be clear, my amendment would be to delegate to the head of planning to come up with a condition that covers the recommendations by the police architectural liaison officer. That would include that they've put it, so basically that final sentence reads, it would be sensible to have an integrated CCTV and alarm system installed, which I believe is already in place, as well as quite substantial target hardening measures on any doors, windows and hatches. Now, in my mind, that also sounds like stuff that's already in place, but just as a point of being sensible, I think whenever we see recommendations like that come in, we should be putting them in as a condition, as a thing of habit. So that's what my proposal is. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, Mr. Firth.
So Chair, I just want to clarify what the difference is now between the two situations you've got. I think they're fairly limited. I think Councillor Tarling and his motion has picked up on the CCTV and is happy, I think, probably to have it delegated to the head of planning operations to come up with the final wording. And that covers, I think, the first part of the bit you read out. So the only bit that would then remain is the door hardening aspects, and you'd want the scheme to cover that as well. I think, is that a fair summary?
Yeah, and am I right in thinking the owner would quite desperately like to come in and probably confirm what's already in place?
I think for the sake of the debate, it probably is worth it. Although he has said that there are measures and they do inspections, I think once and for all, it will be nice to hear again. Thank you.
I think everyone's agreed on the CCTV element anyway, and as I've said, that's already in place anyhow. As said, the report from that officer was done very early on in the stages. They recommended the roof hardening measures, I believe, something along those lines with the phrase. When we first installed it, the bus was an open top, and we did have issues with that. We have subsequently built a roof on the bus, so those measures have already been enacted and are in place. The bus, the containers are all fully secure. So if anything, you would have to put a condition in place for us to take that away rather than to put it in, because it's already there, it's already being done, if that helps.
And that really does help, so thank you. Councillor Salmon, you're happy with?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like my amendment is rather moot at this stage. I just think as good practice, I would expect to see recommendations from a police architectural liaison officer included as a condition. Maybe that's me being too risk averse, but too fuddy-duddy. But yeah, that just stood out as something I would have liked in as a condition.
Well, Chair, two comments, but the first comment is I think just something generic is quite difficult to condition. So if you just say some hardening measures, you've heard now from the applicant there have been some hardening measures. So I think just leaving like that, wouldn't help much in a condition, because it'd still leave open what other measures you'd be talking about. So I think there'd be a problem with something that's generic. So that'd be my first observation. I don't know if that answers the point, but secondly, obviously, if members really wanted to go along that route, then we need someone to second the motion anyway. But I think the first point I'd say is probably, I'd be concerned about the generic nature of that when you've already heard this thing's happened.
Okay, so are you wanting to hold your motion, or you?
I'll withdraw my amendment. It sounds like it's creating work for everybody.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Salmon. I think we've heard from the applicant. So it's been proposed with CCTV and seconded. If there's no further debate, we'll go to the vote. So those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So that's unanimous. Thank you for that. Okay, so now we're moving on to item 6B. So I will be departing now. So we need an election of a chair. So do I have a nomination, Councillor Flagg?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to nominate Councillor Adams to take the chair for this item on the agenda.
And Councillor Tarling?
Yeah, happy to second that. Thank you.
And all in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Okay, Councillor Adams, you want to take?
Thank you very much for your support, members. I'm just going to suggest a short 5-10 minute comfort break. Shall we reconvene at quarter to? Welcome back, everyone, with your more younger, glamorous chair. I just have to announce the departure of Joe Clements, who sadly left. So we're moving on to the next item, 6B, the Noisy Lobster, Avon Beach. So we'll crack on with the presentation.
Thank you. So this application is for the Noisy Lobster Restaurant, which is at Avon Beach, Mudderford, Christchurch. The application is for alterations to the existing ground floor entrance, extension to and partial demolition of ground floor with enlargement of first floor terrace above, enlargement of front dormers, removal of side window and internal reconfigurations throughout. This is the site here. It's got quite a large red site outline that covers quite a lot of the beach. But the restaurant is just this part of the site here, and a closer view of it here. And a sort of wider location view. You can see it's accessed to the south here. There's a public car park next to it here, and also behind it. There's quite a lot of trees around behind the site. You can see those car parks there, and obviously it fronts onto the beach. This is the site plan. It's got a restaurant at ground floor and first floor, and there's a roof terrace above. This application follows a consent in 2023 for a very similar application, which was dealt with under delegated powers. This application is brought to the committee today because it's sited on council-owned land. Although the changes to the constitution, which were voted through last week, mean it probably in the future would not need to come before you, because there's a new stipulation that it's only 10 or more objections. It would result in it coming to the committee, and in this case we've got 2, I think. So these are the existing floor plans. You can see there's a restaurant on the ground floor, various areas, kitchen area at the back, and also some staff areas on the first floor, as well as more restaurant. And then they've got this first floor terrace area here. Existing roof plan, you can see it covers that first floor, and it's got quite a large area of flat roof with some dormer windows around it. Proposed floor plans, there'll be a sort of more clear slide in a minute that shows you the changes, but in comparison to the previous scheme, you can see the red dashed outlines of where they're moving internal walls. The main changes here just relate to this front entrance and a small area on the first floor that they're enlarging over the previous scheme. The proposed roof plan, again, I might just move on because it's clearer on these slides here. So the existing restaurant has got the same entrance as is proposed here. The previously approved scheme, they proposed a change where they were going to inset that entrance with a canopy over. They've highlighted it as a change on this application, but essentially it's just remaining the same as it is at the moment. And then on the first floor, the consented scheme on the left, you can see a sort of bit of an odd shape to the roof on the corner there. In investigating the roof, they've realised that it needs replacing, so they're taking the opportunity to enlarge that space to make it a bit more usable. I think the previous consented scheme did reduce the number of the capacity of the restaurant slightly, and this scheme just sort of restores it. It doesn't actually add any further capacity really materially over what's there at the moment. So the existing elevations, yeah, you can see that sort of form of the building with quite a bulky sort of mansard type roof, giving them that first floor accommodation. And then the proposed elevations, again, it's clearer in a minute because it's highlighted the differences, but it relates to this corner here at the first floor level where they're creating a sort of larger dormer window facing the sea, and then that entrance that they're not now changing. So yeah, this is a comparison. You can't really see a lot on the ground floor because, again, like I say, they were creating that sort of canopy under, but there's no change to the footprint. The building is there at the moment already. And then on the first floor, this more clearly shows the sort of existing roof slope, and then that sort of dormer that they're coming out to the side with. Some photos of the existing restaurant. So this is the entrance area here. As you can see, it is already there. That's the front of the restaurant with the terrace above. This is sort of around the back, the entrance over this side here. And again, around the back, you won't see any change from that view. And then this little area here on the first floor is where they're going to infill with that sort of dormer section. You can see it's not really that prominently visible. It's set back behind the terrace. So overall, it doesn't really increase the capacity of the restaurant to any significant degree. The design changes are considered acceptable. So we've recommended approval. Just one further comment that, again, like the previous scheme, there's been a new version of the MPPF published within the last week. Having been through it, we don't consider there's any material implications for the determination of this application.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So we're moving on to speakers. So we've got no registered objectors. And for the applicant, we've got Peter Hayward. So come forward, Mr. Hayward. And you have up to 5 minutes. So.
Good morning, committee members. My name is Peter Hayward, and I am a director of Avon Beach Limited, also known as the Noisy Lobster. The application before you is an amendment to the application which was approved in October 2023. I am pleased to see that the planning officer has recommended this for approval. When carrying out exploratory work with the structural engineer for the approved 2023 application, it became apparent that there had been a substantial fire on the premises before our occupation. Many structural elements to the right-hand corner of the first floor are no longer fit for purpose, and this application before you is a structural solution that will remove and replace the damaged elements, allowing for the roof form to be simplified and squared off. The sole intention of the scheme in general before you is to enhance the experience for our customers. On the ground floor, relocating the front door and stairs allows improved flow to the building. It also removes the unsightly plastic framed foyer, improving the aesthetics of the building. On the first floor, the entrance to the outside terrace is to be moved to again minimise the interruption to seated diners. The main benefit of the application is to greatly improve the views of the diners on the first floor, with fabulous large windows offering unparalleled views of Avon Beach. The scheme does not enlarge the footprint of the building. There is also a net zero increase in covers to the restaurant. The aesthetics of the building will be greatly improved. Most importantly, the diner's experience will be enhanced. In hospitality, one must continually invest in order to survive in an increasingly harsh industry. As a family-owned business, we invested over £3 million at Avon Beach, and we employ over 140 staff. Our investment in this council-owned property allows us to continue to provide stable employment to these people. As with previous applications, the previous application 23, highways, environmental health and BCP trees and landscaping not raised any objections to this application. I have seen that the Town Council have objected to this application, citing overdevelopment, impinging on the public right of way and detrimental impact to the local amenity. I think the officer's presentation and my points prove that these have no basis whatsoever and are completely unjustified. The footprint of the building does not change and there is no net increase to the number of covers in the restaurant. It is worth noting that the Christchurch Town Council have objected to every single planning application we have submitted in our 12 years of tenure. It is very disappointing that a Town Council continually wishes to obstruct a family-owned business that wishes to invest in a locally owned property, council property, that provides employment and custom to hundreds of local people. I urge the committee to follow their planning officer's advice in supporting this application. Thank you.
Very much. And now we've got ward councillors registered to speak. So we've got Councillor Deadman on Teams, if you want to jump in when you're ready.
Yes, hello, thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, the Noisy Lobster is run as a very family-oriented establishment, and it uses local produce and it employs local people. So our area is, in my view, lucky to have it. And at the moment, it's rather a loose conglomeration of buildings or built forms, as you saw from the footprint. What's proposed, I heard Peter say that the town council say it's going to create a problem. As far as I can see it, it's not going to at all impinge on the beach users going past it, which is what I do most days. And I do understand that with all the repairs needed to the roof, which I did know about, it's very sensible to change where you want to make it easier to run the business. So I haven't really got anything much to say about it other than what the officer has said. And so I would be quite happy to see this approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we're opening it. Oh, thank you, Councillor Dedman. So we'll open it up to members of the committee for any questions or clarification. Anyone? No? Well, we'll move swiftly on to the debate then. It feels like my special time is going to come to an end quite quickly. Anyone got anything to say? Councillor Tarling.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for this application. And I did actually make a statement at the start of this meeting that I have actually sat as chair of the Christchurch Town Council Planning Committee on an application. I can actually dispute. I don't think every application has been turned down, because I do recall one previously that I'm sure was approved. However, this scheme, I recognise that Mr. Hayward and the Avon Beach Company have done a lot to promote tourism to this part of the beach in all its activities, be it GMTV and all the other activities. And it's been a project, a building which has changed shape. So every 3-4 years, a bit has been added on, and as Councillor Dedman quite rightly pointed out, it has that appearance, as the applicants pointed out, with that UPVC glazed area. To have it look more like a homogeneous building, I think is a massive improvement to the building, and I can see no detrimental impact at all to the beachfront. And I run along that beach occasionally. Actually, I haven't done it for a while, as you can probably tell, but yeah, I'm quite often down there. And if you're looking at the building and not at the wonderful views across the Christchurch Bay to the Needles, then there's something wrong with you anyway. But it's done a great job, as we saw during lockdown. It was absolutely rammed down there. It attracts a lot of people to the area, and it's a massive asset to the community. So I'm happy to propose that we grant this in line with the recommendation from the officer. Thank you.
Hands up, but Councillor Williams was just first.
Yeah, I was going to actually make the same suggestion, but I'm happy to second that.
Great, and then was Councillor Flagg's hand or to also second it? Great. Anyone else? Anything else to say? Okay, so we'll move to the vote then. So we're voting to approve the motion as set out in the officer, with the conditions as set out in the officer's report. So can I see hands for?
Okay, that's unanimous, Chair.
Perfect. So that's been granted. So thank you very much. Thank you. And so that's the end of the meeting. So can you confirm the live streams? Well,